You know, every sweetheart comes with some baggage. And that one came with a lot. A whole truckload, in fact. And there's more in here, including that. You may not find what follows as interesting and exciting as I do. For one thing, you didn't just buy this thing. But for another, you may not be such a humongous Mopar nut. And in that case, I understand. And I don't blame you if you don't watch. If you are a huge Mopar nut, dig in. It's a lot of cool stuff to see. Oh, I need to take some marker, scribble that out and write 2. We'll get there. I think I mentioned at some point I've been looking at an old picture of the Demon for some time and, drooling. And there it is. It's got the wing on it. It's got the sticker. Obviously the same car. Kind of cool. Probably about 15 years old, I suppose. I bought this thing. I didn't just buy a desirable collector car. I also took over the regular care and feeding of this thing. It's my charge now. I also took over storage of the original parts museum. Today on Dead Dodge Garage, we dig into this. The parts pile accompanying my 71 344 speed Demon. The car itself is still lacking valve train. I did find in this parts collection a new set of spark plugs, so I'll be installing those instead of spending my hard-earned money on new ones. Before we dig into the parts pile, I want to look at this. That's the car at the drag strip in 1972, the Hot Wheels event he attended when he realized the car's potential. This is a neat shot. It shows the car as it was, initially anyway, when he was racing. Note the original rally wheels, and note those tires on the back. More on that in a second. Another cool detail here, it's hard to see in the camera, but there's actually a header flange hanging down below the car pointing forward. That's because they did the old paint trick on the exhaust pipes. They cut it where the paint stopped burning off and installed header flanges to be uncorked at the racetrack. Remember those tires from the picture? Here they are, 50 years later, mounted on the original wheels. These wheels are in immaculate shape. The other two, they're a little grimy. One of them in particular must have been on the top of a stack outside for a while, so it needs some cleaning. You can see here on the trim ring, there's a little rust, but not bad. I've had worse. It's amazing these are here, and it's amazing what condition these are in. I almost can't believe it. Here, of course, are the wheels on the car. Now, Krager SS, custom built, on the car, by Krager. Very cool. These will be staying, but it's awesome to have the option of putting the rally wheels on. For street mode, or whatever. And speaking of those header flanges, here they are. That's how you got into race mode when you got to the track. They're right here in a bucket with the original exhaust manifolds. Now clearly these have seen some moisture, and they need some love. But here they are. They'd clean up. Really neat. These are expensive and hard to find nowadays. Repops are available, but who wants that? Here is just a small selection of the original parts removed from the car. When your original alternator fails, do you save it? No? Well, Dale did. In fact, I actually think it still works. He just opted for a chrome one when he did the mechanical restoration. There's an original starter, an original water pump, and what I believe are original belts, although I haven't found the markings on them yet. The alternator in particular is a very nice piece. It's extremely clean. Obviously there you can see the dual field connections and a factory part number. It predates the square case. This is the older style, but with 2 fields. Nice piece. When you remove your original wiper blades, do you save them? No? Dale did. Here they are. The car's been through a few stages in its long life. Original as purchased, hopped up for racing in the 70s, and mechanical restoration in 2005 or so. This is the distributor that was installed at the factory. You can see there it's a dual point unit. Interesting to me, this is a cast iron housing. It's very heavy. Serious business. Totally different than the aluminum ones that are normally used. One One of the period upgrades for racing Dale did was this Mopar electronic ignition upgrade. Interesting note, this distributor is a special piece. It's a cast housing just like the factory unit. It uses a different cap and rotor than the aluminum units I'm used to. There's the rotor there. Almost more interesting than that, mechanical tack drive. I looked at this cap and rotor setup in the book. It appears to date back to about 55. I have a theory about this. I think this piece was used in Hemis, and it was carried over for performance. Here's a factory Mopar blue box. Note the sticker there. It's a little bubbly, but might still be good. As I understand, this electronic ignition system was available on high-performance cars in '72, and it was phased into regular production in '73. It may have been available in 1971. I'm not entirely clear on that, but this car definitely came with dual points. Maybe my favorite thing in this collection, the original 340 air cleaner. These are expensive pieces nowadays. Note the wrinkle black finish, which is correct. Also note the dual inlets. One there, one there. They do not have the snorkel-looking silencers that most air cleaners have. This is special to the 340. Also note here, the original sticker is very much intact. What a cool piece. In here we have a Fram replacement filter. This housing was run on the car until the mechanical restoration, replacement of the 340, and freshening and dress up around 2005, 6, something like that. So it was used and the filter was replaced. One of very few things that is not here. But really, if you're going to pick a car apart because it doesn't have its factory air cleaner element, what are you doing with your life? One of the upgrades Dale did for racing were these adjustable shocks. I'm told there's a pair of the same shocks on the car now, but they are set differently. He would carry these extras around and switch between them if he needed a firmer or softer shock, depending on track conditions. We believe that is the original flywheel. That is not an original clutch disc. The pressure plate, I doubt it's original as well. Dale says he did have issues with clutches, and he's been through many. In fact, there are two more right there in a box, and I believe there's one further somewhere. That should be the factory flywheel. The one in it now is an explosion-proof piece, and I'm okay with that. Here's something that's really neat, to nerds like me anyway. Not only was this car one of the very first uses of the thermoquad by Chrysler, this is the very first part number they used. The way to tell immediately that this is not a regular thermoquad, like that one, is a quick look at these angled idle mixture screws. I'm told this thermoquad has been modified extensively for going fast. In any case, I'm glad it's here. These are expensive and hard to find. And again, they are special to these cars. And here's something else cool. A thermoquad tune-up kit with needles and jets. That's neat. Here's another cool piece. 340 idle solenoid. These were used because these engines have higher compression ratios and were tuned with more aggressive timing and fueling. Because of this, they had a tendency to diesel when shut off, or after run, self-ignite. These were used to close the throttle fully and cut that off when the key was turned off. Also found on six-packs, although it is not exactly the same part. Here's a selection of original 4-speed parts. Shift rods, one of which is broken, clutch fork, and pivot. I'm not sure on this paint being original. Dale thinks it is. I just don't know. For some reason, I expected these parts to be bare. The spare clutch fork could be original. The original could be in the car. We're not sure on that. Dale says he did have to use different forks for different clutch setups, so that's a little hazy. These, I believe, are original or replacement 340 push rods. I might need those. Here's another very cool piece. Original 340 valve covers and what appear to be original bolts. The 340 valve covers are special because of this wire carrier to keep the wiring up off of the intake. You can also find these are in slightly different locations than most valve covers. They tend to be up on top. I have seen later ones with this arrangement. In fact, the valve covers on the 79 pickup have the same setup, but of course, they don't have that, and they also have a hump in the middle. These are neat. Note the black wrinkle finish. Dale had actually said these were missing. Then we found them in a box. That was an exciting moment for me. If I were so inclined, the engine could easily be dressed with these components, and it would look factory again. Well, mostly. I don't think I'm going to do that, but it's great that the parts are here and it's an option. Someday I might change my mind. Also note below the valve covers, brand new Atomic EFI setup. I don't know that I want to put that on the car either, but I am considering it. So the factory parts are here, but there are also parts that have been used on the car over the years. For example, this air cleaner is why there's a dent in that hood. Turns out, high-rise dual-plane air gap manifold plus carburetor spacer plus Edelbrock equals not quite enough room for an air cleaner stud. Again, it's there, it's part of the story. I accept that. It's kind of funny. All right, here's something else neat. The original radiator. I'm sure it was repainted at some point. It kind of looks too nice, but, well, maybe not. I'm told there's a leak in the solder and possibly a small leak in the core somewhere, but it could easily be repaired. And if I ever need it, here it is. It's got the right part number and everything. There are other spares, like for example, a spare passenger side 340 valve cover. The other one's not correct, but it's close. Spare pulleys and parts off the 318 engine. That's something I haven't picked up, and it has the rest of the engine parts on it. More on that later. I hadn't even noticed really that the car has chrome pulleys on it, but here are the originals. Oh, and a slight clarification. The areas I pointed out on the firewall and in the door jamb had not had touch-up paint, but I did happen to notice that on the trailer wiring and other little things there was some overspray. Dale did some cleanup in the engine compartment, and I'm told one of these cans of paint is a really good match. The others, not so much. These are not the original rocker shafts. Those are on the 318. I'm guessing these were from the 318. It's good to have spares. They're not complete, but I did find the hold-down bolts, as well as extras, in a little container in one of these boxes. There are many more little parts here. There's way too much to go through bit by bit. It would take days. But one thing I do want to show you is this. Old school Chrysler gasket package. How neat is that? Or how about this? This clearly dates from the 70s or early 80s, but it has the Mopar M. Must be one of the earliest uses of that logo. I think that's about it for parts. Now I want to move on to some of the memorabilia. Starting with this. This is the trophy Dale won at the 1973 Winter Nationals with this car. How cool is that? Now it does have a generic marking on it that says class winner. I actually don't know what class it is he won. I need to check on this. I know it was one of the stock classes, I just don't remember what it was called. One of the cool things included with the car is this, a binder containing all of the important information, important dates, and records. One very neat thing found in this binder is this letter inviting Dale to the 1973 World Championship Drag Racing Finals after his win at the Winter Nationals. He didn't make it to this because it was in Texas. Right next to the letter, time slips, copies, and the slips themselves. Look at that one. 1188 at 180 degrees engine temp and 10 pounds in the slicks. Man, that's moving for back then. There's some other cool and kind of funny things in here. This is a letter written from the perspective of the car telling its history. It was a daily driver. Then it went on the drag strip. Turns out, it's kind of fast. And the rest is history. Here is a nice layout of the different phases the car went through as far as performance upgrades. Also, it says here in 73, he was competing in stock eliminator. And here in this pocket, the original title. The one on the left, it says void, but there it is. The one on the right is a photocopy of the reissue title. The interesting thing is, when he had it reissued, it still showed the same number, and it still showed the same registration date, January of 1971, because it was never transferred. When I bought the car, they had me sign the odometer disclosure, So my name and signature are on that copy of the title. That's cool. Here is the original window sticker. It shows the different options the car came with, few as they are. It does say Sure Grip differential, which it did come with. Dale had attempted to order the car with 410s. Apparently 410s weren't available. Something got lost in translation and it came with 323s. Also it shows here, delete performance side stripe, 4-speed transmission, and rear deck panel stripe. Also, rally wheels, but only 4, standard spare. Sold car, it says. Dale ordered it, so that makes sense. You'll note it says nothing here about hood scoops or a spoiler. Dale had attempted to order the car with these pieces, but they didn't come with. I'm not sure how that happened. I don't think anyone's around to tell us. Here's a collection of pictures showing the car's state when it moved to Washington in 2003. Well, it looks pretty good, but as you go through, you can see the seats were a little moldy. The dash didn't look the greatest. The engine compartment in particular was looking a little sad. The paint still looked pretty good though. Also note, it did not yet have the spoiler at this time. Here's a look at what the engine compartment looked like after being left alone for 25 years. Yeah, it looks a lot better now. But note here, you can see the original air cleaner, the original valve covers. The engine there is the 318 that was running the car from 1975 until 2005 or so. There you can see, yep, the original radiator missing its black paint. So that's definitely been redone. Also interesting, there were 2 washer tanks. One used for an overflow and one still in place for washer fluid. It has since been deleted to make way for the MSD. There are lots of cool little notes to be made in this picture. For example, it still had the original metal ties on the heater hoses. They're now replaced with zip ties. There's the original alternator as we found it in a box, the original pulleys, and so on. As we were loading stuff up in Dale's garage, he said, hey, here's something you could probably use for your shop. A manual for 1973. Would you like one from 71 as well? It's well used. In this stack are various things. Cam specs here, mostly installation instructions for the more recent performance parts, but there are other interesting notes. There's a little tuning guide with a Mopar doing a wheelie on the cover, so that's kind of cool. The last thing I want to show you is this. Very cool. It snuck its way out the back door at Chrysler sometime in the mid-70s and made its way to Dale, courtesy of the nice folks at Direct Connection. This is the Direct Connection Racing Manual. This one actually contains not only the small block section, a torque flight tuning section, a manual transmission section, suspension, obviously, information on hood scoops, an engine swap manual. Wow! Wow, I didn't expect to find that. Fuel economy tune-up tips. Skipping toward the back, we find this, 426 Hemi Racing Manual. But hiding behind that, maybe my favorite, Slant 6 Racing Manual. Just incredible. I love everything about this. Note the date, June 1973. Yeah, behind that there's a section on the Colt. It didn't deserve its own title page though. There is a wealth of information in that book that a guy like me could find useful. But more than that, it's just such an amazing time capsule and a piece of record. Okay, it wasn't the last thing. This is the spare 4-speed transmission that came with the car. Dale says the factory unit is only back in there because it's numbers matching, and that if I want to use this car as it's meant to be used, I need to install that one. So that's going to happen. Hopefully that solves all my problems, at least in the short term. The synchros in this don't look perfect, but they look all right, and it feels pretty good. So that's the plan. Also in this dark corner, far away from everything else because, well, they're heavy, 2 spare rear gear setups, a 323 limited slip, and a 488. Street mode, party mode. It's entirely possible that these are the factory gears. We're unsure of that. Definitely the original center section in the car with 410s, not the original gears. Oh yes, it also came with some artwork. Well, my next plan is to sort out some of this stuff. Most of it will end up stored, but some of it I'd like to display, especially that thingy. And I don't know, maybe mount one of those on the wall. We'll figure that out. But I'd like to get some of the neater parts that are worth looking at, and some of the memorabilia, tucked into that display case thingy, if at all possible. And put it somewhere. Not over there buried in Cummins parts. Unfortunately, the Winter Nationals trophy is too big to fit in there, so I'm gonna have to figure something out. A little further down the road, when I can get the shop in order and, well, all that dealt with, the Demon will have a whole corner of the shop all its own. It'll be a little Demon museum. That'll be cool. Hopefully it likes its new home. But I guess we'll see. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look at all the little bits that came with the Demon, the original hard-to-find stuff, and some of the other neat things. If you didn't, I suppose you stopped watching some time ago, and I accept that. Thanks for watching. Look forward to more Demon stuff soon.